I'm Harris Faulkner. Here today, my co-hosts, Emily Compagno and Kayleigh McEnany. And you can hear in the background with Kayleigh. She is at a fabulous event in Tampa. We'll learn all about that as the hour rolls on. Syndicated radio host and Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall is here. And in the center virtual seat, co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend and Fox Nation co-host, Fox Nation host Pete Hegseth. Pete and Kayleigh are joining us live from Turning Point USA Student Action Summit in Tampa. And like I said, we'll get into more of the details on that. Pete, you got some nice people standing behind you. Yes. Say hi for me. A COVID outbreak now on board a plane. After Texas Democrats packed onto private jets, proudly posing without masks, flying to Washington, D.C. to avoid voting on Texas election integrity bill last week. Two of the first three Texas lawmakers who tested positive for COVID met with Vice President Kamala Harris. Look, you can see it in the photo. And there are always receipts these days, right? The crew also met with other Democrats who applauded their move, including New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and appeared all around Capitol Hill, mostly not wearing masks. Again, we don't know the vaccination details on these people, but we do know that now more than double the number have tested positive for COVID. Now, just imagine, just for a second, imagination experiment here, the media reaction and what it would be if the people in the scenario were Republicans. Let's give Leslie Marshall a chance to rebut some of the comments here if she so chooses. Leslie.
I have a D at the end of my name, and it was irresponsible. I don't care if you have a D, you have an R, whatever your initial is. And this is why, Harris, this is why, you know, people have the belief, and I see it out there on social media, I even hear it, people that call into my radio show. There's a belief that if you're vaccinated, you are immune from getting COVID. That is not true. What you are immune from, the experts, the scientists, the doctors say, is death, being on a ventilator or being in the ICU, because that's what we're seeing with the unvaccinated right now. This was irresponsible. Even if you are vaccinated, you're supposed to still be wearing a mask, especially in a small space as they were on that plane. And, you know, if anything, this just shows, look, you need to be vaccinated, because I'm not hearing about any of them on a ventilator or in the ICU. And we're seeing alarming numbers in some of our states, whether it's children or people 30 to 55 years of age now, because we know that this Delta variant is stickier in our lungs. That's what doctors and scientists are saying. So this clearly was irresponsible. It was wrong to do. And I don't care if they were just taking their masks off for a moment. Do we know that for a photo op? But still, they're in a small space. They're traveling. Well, they know better. Leaders, Democrat or Republican, need to lead by example.
So I was asked that question about what do I think is happening. Facebook isn't killing people. These 12 people are out there giving misinformation. Anyone listening to it is getting hurt by it. It's killing people. It's bad information. My hope is that Facebook, instead of taking it personally that somehow I'm saying Facebook is killing people, that they would do something about the misinformation, the outrageous misinformation about the vaccine. That's what I meant.
President Biden speaking at the top of the hour, walking back his explosive comments on Facebook, where he initially blamed it for killing people by allowing the spread of COVID and vaccine misinformation. This amid concerns about censorship and freedom of speech after the White House said it would try to control what it determines is COVID misinformation on social media. Leslie, I'm wondering from you if you think in any way Kamala Harris saying don't trust the Trump vaccine and Trump's part in the vaccine, and Biden, you know, don't trust, he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, don't trust Trump on the vaccine. They said it for political purposes last election. Does that have any part in hesitancy that we're seeing today?
Absolutely not, because when you look at the numbers of the people that have not been vaccinated in the specific areas, the demographics, these are in red states, these are in a lot of the rural areas that voted for your former boss. And even though your former boss had the vaccine, why aren't they getting it? That's what we're saying. And regarding this misinformation, we're not talking about wear a mask, don't wear a mask. We're talking about 12 individuals who are putting things out there like that people are believing. We're seeing incredibly high numbers, percentages of people on the right who are believing that if you get vaccinated, you will have a microchip by the government put into your body. That is cray-cray. It is not true. That is misinformation. And doctors today are saying that nearly 100% of the people that are in the hospitals, in the ICUs, on the ventilators, have not been vaccinated. So if we have misinformation about this, again, this should not be, never should have been political. But I don't think that anybody in these areas, when you just look at the stats and the demographics, would honestly listen to something that Kamala Harris said simply because of their political leanings.
Pete, I saw you trying to jump in there. What a red herring. Look at those Republicans over there. It's their fault.
Yeah, and who defines misinformation? You want to be on a list, Leslie, if there's a different administration that doesn't like what you're talking about?
Do you really think a microchip is in the arm? Do you think the government's putting a microchip in our arms with the vaccine?
But it could be any sliding scale of reluctancy about the vaccine or ideas of mask mandates, as Kaylee pointed out. Who draws the line of what's acceptable or not acceptable? Who's the misinformant? Who isn't? That's really scary. You should be as concerned as we are, regardless of what administration's in the White House.
All right, guys, Fox News alert. Police are on the lookout for the suspects involved in the shooting outside the Washington Nationals baseball game Saturday night, as the D.C. Police Union is now slamming politicians for the rise in crime. Gunshots rang out during the National Padres game, forcing players and fans to run for cover. Washington, D.C., where violent crime permeates everything. It is a tragedy that elected officials won't let us do our jobs. And Leslie, there's now a $60,000 reward related to the shooting death of 6-year-old Nia Courtney. She's just one of what has been called the extinction of our children in this gun violence epidemic that has been rocking the communities there now in Washington, D.C., in all neighborhoods, Chicago, just to name a couple. But the reality is rewards like this probably won't help. People are afraid for their lives, and they're certainly not going to give up information if it jeopardizes their safety, as all of these children are dying. What needs to change in your opinion?
There's a lot of things that need to change, and we need to look at the facts. Look, I'm pro-union, but for the union to say this is the anti-police sentiment, the facts don't bear that out, because we've had an increase in crime steadily year after year for the past 4 years in Washington, D.C. That's before COVID. That's before defunding the police being chanted by my party. And that's before we saw sentiment toward the police change, which, by the way, last week Gallup had a poll showing that African Americans actually are now increasing and embracing the police once again. And whites, by the way, since before, during, and after the murder of George Floyd, according to this poll by Gallup last week, their opinions of the police have remained unchanged. We have more guns on the street than we've ever had before. That further enables the gangs and the drug dealers, and those three are literally a powder keg. We're seeing that, not just in Washington, D.C., but many cities, which is why we see crime down in many cities, except for homicides by guns. That is a huge issue.